Welcome to Mr. Giant Reacts to Ting and Ting and Ting. I'm Mr. Giant, and today we're going to be looking at the top 10 rudest country in the world. According to who is what I want to know, you know what I mean? I want to see who is on this list. I want to see if there's any surprises on this list. So you all stick around with me so we could watch this and, view for yourself. And anybody from those countries that I mentioned, comment down below. Debunked this for me, you know what I mean? Because you can't go to a country, meet one rude person and go, hey, all these people are so rude here. Why are they so rude here? You could say people are rude in Grenada too, especially since we gesticulate so much when we talk and it seems like we're angry, but we're not. We just really animated in the way we talk, you know what I mean? Just simple conversation might seem like an argument. Let's YouTube and simmer and see what I go on with this.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to World According to Briggs and an international video. Today we're looking at countries where tourists say the locals are rude. I read a blog about this subject where a guy said every time he went to Germany he ran across nothing but rude and unfriendly people. He listed a few other countries he felt were almost as bad as Germany, but he said Germany was the worst. So that got me thinking, and I ran a poll where I listed 40 of the most visited countries and asked travelers to pick the 3 countries they felt the locals were the most rude. I also listed the top 15 on a few different polls on the community section of this channel, and this is what we found. Number 10, the Greeks. Greece is one of the oldest countries still going. They offer tourists ancient ruins, great islands, amazing beaches, gyros, and a steady helping of F you go back where you came from. Around 30 million people visit Greece every single year. The government and shop owners love that. The locals aren't always on board with it. They have a reputation of being rude. I don't think it's always as rude as people might think. A lot like here in the United States, Greece, they have a tendency to talk a lot with their arms and a little too close for American and let's say British standards. You know, they get a little too close when they're talking. And I think a lot of Westerners or people from North America kind of view this as them being rude. Now, granted, like all countries, they have some rude people that are just rude, but I think a lot of their reputation comes from that. 37% of the people surveyed had Greece listed as one of the 3 rudest countries.
See, that's the thing about travel. Because people expect if they travel somewhere that everybody's going to be respectful of them. In a world full of politics and angst towards each other because of beliefs, you're not going to find that everywhere you go. I mean, everybody knows that to a certain degree, but I've known people who seem to think that when they come to the islands, and I'm going to speak about the islands because I'm from there, that we should cater to their every move. When they tell us to do something, we should do it. You know what I mean? Because, hey, I could afford to come to your country. I'm spending money. You better be kissing my bum. Now, here's the thing. That whole thing about the locals not liking people around, it also falls into the category of one country. Like, for instance, people going to Florida, and they go to Florida a lot to go to the beaches. The locals don't really like them. They come in there because they sort of disrupt the everyday lifestyle of the people who actually live and work in Florida, on the beaches and stuff. And especially with these college kids and their spring break and they're wilding out the thing, like the young people say, I could understand why, they don't like them coming. Now, here's something too, growing up on the island, I find a lot of tourists very rude when they come there. They're very rude. They have their nose up in the air and stuff like that. Not a huge majority of them, but quite a few of them are very rude. They don't want you to talk to them, you know what I mean? Know your place, boy. That kind of stuff. You get that kind of thing there. But then those are the same people who are probably going to complain about the islanders being rude. Before you travel to somebody's country, understand the culture. Like it said in the video, the Greeks talk a little close and they gesticulate a lot. We do that in the Caribbean. I don't think we get too close. I know on the island we don't get too close to people like that. But then that's the culture. They're close to each other when they're talking. They can't just switch it up because you're there for like a week and be something that they're not. So we have to take that kind of stuff into consideration too when we talk about the rudest people, because what you may consider rude in your culture is not considered rude in their culture. Gotta take it with a grain of salt and just relax and enjoy the vibe that they have going on there. That's the way they are. If somebody is like a danger to you, you should be able to tell the difference. But if they're just being themselves, it's the way it is. You know what I mean? Roll with the punches. You're in a different country. Enjoy it. Let's get back to the video.
Number 9, the Turkish. Yeah, Turkey's got kind of a reputation for having rude residents. Like Greece, they have a lot of history going on here. Istanbul, which used to be Constantinople, played a big part in the Crusades. This is where a lot of the European crusaders passed through to go to the Middle East and cause all kinds of problems. Constantinople served as an imperial capital for almost 16 centuries. All the way back to the Romans, the Byzantines, the Ottomans, they all had this place as their capital. Turkey offers a lot more outside of Istanbul. They've got a lot of history here, a lot of great things to see. Turkey sees around 50 million visitors a year. Actually, in 2019, for the pandemic, they hit 52 million. So they see a lot of people going through here, and not everyone's on board with how cool they are there. 41% of the respondents had Turkey as one of their 3 countries with the rudest locals.
Wow.
Number 8, Italians. I mean, how can these people be so rude? They got pasta, pizza, they got all the good food here. In my opinion, Italian food ranks right behind Mexican food. Yeah, that's just me. Maybe if I grew up in Europe, I'd feel the opposite about that, but Mexican food, then Italian food. That's how I see it. Italy has some of the most amazing cities to see. Think about it. Rome, Milan, Venice, Florence, San Marino, which actually isn't part of Italy, it's its own country. Yeah, most people don't know that Italy has a small country inside of Italy. It is San Marino, and it is east of Florence and south of Venice. Italy sees over 90 million tourists every single year, at least in the last 10 years. That's about what they see, over 90 million. That dropped down considerably during the pandemic years, but in normal times, they see about 90 million people. And a good percentage of those people apparently think the Italians are rude. Italians actually have a reputation for being rude. I mean, they didn't invent the middle finger, the Greeks did, but the Italians, they sort of perfected it. In Milan, they actually have a statue of the middle finger pointing at the Italian stock exchange. Not even kidding, here it is. For a country that invented banks, they really don't like bankers too much. 41% of the people listed Italians in their top 3 rudest locals.
They're picking the
Number 7,
animated
the
countries, I've
Spanish.
noticed that.
This one caught me by surprise. I know quite a few
What?
Spanish people. They've never been anything but friendly and nice. But apparently, if you're a tourist in their homeland, they're not too keen about it. I was reading one travel blogger, and he said that it's mostly the younger kids, younger people, I should say, the 30 to 20 to their teens. They're the people that don't like a lot of tourists. The older people sort of like it, or at least they like the money that's being brought in from the tourists. I find this one a little strange. I don't know if it's accurate, from my experience, I should say. But apparently, if you go by the survey and the polls, the Spanish people aren't too keen on people coming to Spain. Spain sees about 70 million visitors a year, and 45% of the people surveyed had Spain as one of their 3 countries with the rudest locals.
No, I could understand the younger people being a little bit aggravated about the tourists coming there in Spain, like you said. I could totally get it. The older people are used to it. They know that these people are coming. So I guess they become immune to the foreigners gawking at them, the chanting through the areas, and I don't think people destroy stuff. They're not saying anything about if the visitors and the tourists are destroying anything. And we also have to take into consideration if they have their own native language. Now, if you try to speak to somebody who only speaks Spanish, which more than likely they don't, but who totally understands Spanish, English, if you speak to somebody who doesn't, there's a language barrier. And people get aggravated when you don't understand them, or they don't understand you. I've had that issue myself, and I speak English. People not understanding me, and people have gotten aggravated with me. Not so much now because they're used to me talking around here, but before people used to get aggravated with me when I ordered stuff in a restaurant because they don't understand what I'm saying. They look flabbergasted when I speak. That's understandable. It's also understandable that when you visit somebody's country, the same scenario may play out, especially if English is not the first language. Gotta respect that. Let's get back to the video.
Number 6, the Chinese. Now, I couldn't tell you personally, whether this is correct or not. I'm going by the survey on this one. I've never been to China. I know some Chinese people, not very well, but the survey says that they're pretty rude to locals. I did a little reading, and apparently you go into the rural areas and they really like you. If you get in the cities and stuff, they're kind of rude and abrupt to foreigners. But the locals in the rural areas, they're almost happy to have you. 46% of the people surveyed had China as one of the 3 countries with the rudest locals. Number 5, Americans. Yes, the United States is number 5. I know a lot of people from other countries probably just gasp. How could they be number 5? Shouldn't they be number 1? No, we're really not that rude when you're coming here to be tourists. I mean, if you end up in the wrong place, like New Jersey, you'll probably think differently of us. But for the most part, in most of the country, people are pretty decent in the tourist areas. Not just New Jersey. You might want to add Hawaii onto that. Hawaii's not too keen even about other Americans coming to that state. Now, if you consider gun violence rude, yeah, we're hella rude then, because we got a lot of that here in the United States, in case you don't know and you're from another country. That's like my advice to anyone coming to the United States from another country. Make sure you know where the dangerous neighborhoods are. I mean, any neighborhood has the potential to be dangerous, but we have some that if you don't know about them, could be a serious mistake. So keep that in mind. You should know little things like, go see St. Louis. The arch is neat and all that's really cool. Don't go see East St. Louis. Don't make that mistake. Go see downtown Detroit. Don't go outside of downtown Detroit and you'll be fine. Go visit Chicago. Just don't go too far south from what they call the Loop, which is the downtown area of Chicago. Things like that. 51% of the people surveyed had the United States as one of their 3 countries with the rudest locals.
51%.
Number 4, Russians. Russia's another country that has people that I think sort of get a bad rap. Because it's their culture and the way they do things, it doesn't jive with a lot of, especially Western countries and their citizens.
True.
Russians are very to the point and very blunt about everything. There's no gray areas with them most of the time. And they don't sugarcoat much when they're talking to you. So a lot of people might think that's rude. The people that I know that have visited Russia, they're kind of 50-50 on it. Some say it was great. Some people say they were kind of rude and mean to them. So you don't know. But in the survey, 53% of the respondents had Russia as one of their top 3 countries with the rudest locals.
No, Russia is kind of tricky. And the reason why I say that is the perception of Russia around the world is not one of the best. So then people who visit there, you have to think about what they're expecting when they get there. Because the portrayal of Russians in Hollywood and all of that is these gruff, robot-like people, like in the Rocky movies, the guy that played the Russian was just this blonde, robotic type person. And maybe that depiction of them is what creates the wariness of how they react to tourists coming there. Because, when they're probably thinking, well, they're going to come here and think negatively of us. Now, the decision is to either be really nice or to be the other way, or I don't want to deal with them, you know what I mean? You get away from me, tourists, Of course, depending on where they come from. If they come from Africa, they might have a different way of dealing with them. And if they come from a westernized culture, they're going to have a different way of dealing with them. Now, is it political or is it cultural? I would rather somebody be blunt with me. They don't like me, tell me they don't like me. I'll stay away from you. You know what I'm saying? So we got to take it with a grain of salt when depending on, especially with who did the research and who he spoke to when they do the research. Because somebody from China might have a different idea of whether they're rude or not. Let's get back to the video.
Number 3, Germans. Yeah, Germans are rude and everybody knows it. They can't help it. They got a little that Russian thing going too, where there's no sugarcoating anything. It's very blunt, very to the point, very matter of fact. And like I said in the Russian part, that Westerners find that a little abrasive sometimes. My experience with Germans has never been good. The ones that I know, the ones that I've talked to online, they're always seem to be rude. It's like their thing. I don't know what it is. One thing I've always heard over and over, and I kind of got that vibe too, they always get that thing where they think they're better than everyone else. Now, that's an opinion by a lot of people, not like a fact. There's no arrogance metric, you know? Germany normal years sees about 40 million tourists, and 61% of the people surveyed
Wow.
had Germany as one of their 3 countries that they felt had the rudest locals. Number 2, the British. Now, this is amazing because of all the people surveyed, the number 1 country of origin of people that said the British were the rudest were the British. Yeah, the UK says British are the absolute rudest people in other countries. It's like these people know
Wow.
how they are and they just own it. I've always heard the phrase ugly Americans when they're talking about Americans going to other countries and being tourists and how we're just rude and stupid and everything else like that. But apparently it's the British are even worse than us. 63% of the people surveyed had the United Kingdom in their top 3 for rudest locals. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget at the end of this video, we have these little things where the algorithm suggests other of my videos that you should watch. Why don't you click on one and see if the algorithm's correct? All right, on to number 1. And number 1, the French. The French have a legendary reputation for being rude. There
Not
have been
surprised.
jokes about how rude the French are since forever. Everybody knows it. It's in jokes. They do things about how rude the French are in movies. There was a movie with Dudley Moore years ago where he played an ad executive who had like a breakdown and started telling the truth, and he created an ad that everyone loved. It showed an Italian woman cooking some pasta and said, "Come to Italy, we're nice. We're not like the French." And it showed a guy with a beret flipping the camera off. So that kind of gives you an idea. Now, don't take that as an opening because I made a reference to a movie that shows how something's a stereotype. For some reason, whenever I mention a movie, that's like someone's defense. Oh, he's basing his opinion off a movie. No, that's called an antidote. My opinion is just like the rest of the world's opinion on the French. They're frickin' rude. They got some good wine, though. You gotta love their wine. In 2018, France saw 89 million tourists. Now, their target for 2020 was 100 million, but the pandemic kind of set that sideways. We'll see if they get their 100 million here in the next couple years now that we're getting out of the pandemic. 71% of the people surveyed had France in their top 3 countries with the rudest residents.
Now, you see, I knew they were going to say France because I've had several friends visited France and they say the same thing. Uh, no, here's something that's interesting about that, though. The friends of mine who said that the French are the rudest are the friends who come from well to do families here. Now, that goes back to the cater to me. You know, a friend of mine's visited there. He's a doctor now, and his parents were doctors, and they were pretty well off. And he used to tell me, the French are so rude. I am never going back. Blah 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 blah. What are the expectations? Now, when people keep saying the French are the rudest, when you go there, are you on guard to see if they're the rudest? And whatever thing they say to you consider it rude because that's the image you have ingrained in your head of them. Now, I've not been around too many French people, like native French people. There was one lady that was here that was from France, but she was the nicest lady that I've dealt with, you know, really nice person, you know what I mean? She went back home after a while. But like I said, every time you say somebody say a place is really good, because I could probably go to France and nobody's rude to me. You know what I mean? Whereas my friend, he went to France and they were rude to him. Whereas my other friends, who were just like simple little tourist people going to see France, they loved it. They said people were really nice to them. I guess it's a matter of the aura that you present to them. You know what I mean? You get what you give. Thank you all for watching this with me. This was a very interesting video. Hope you guys enjoyed with me. I'm gonna leave a link in the description for this video and thing, you know. You all could go check it out, you know, see what's going on there with it and thing, you know. Check out this guy's channel too. He's got some of the best top 10 videos on the internet. Thank you all for watching this with me, okay? You all take care of each other, alright? Cool runnings.